This is all listed in the agenda and also was sent out a little more than maybe 30 days ago to the membership by email, so we didn't get any questions back, so I'm assuming there's not a lot of controversy going on around any of this stuff, but happy to discuss any of it. The first correction that we intend to make is to change Sergeant of Arms to Sergeant at Arms. Anyone feel like we need to vote on that? No? Okay, good. There is a correction of any mention to notices being mailed to members to those being emailed or provided electronically. Are we okay with that? Okay. There is one more easy one to get out of the way, which I will do. We are adding page numbers to the document. All right. Okay. So the other two items might warrant a little bit more discussion, so I saved them for last. The first thing we're talking about here is updating the officer term limit language to remove term limits for officers other than the president. The proposed changes to the sentence governing term limits are shown on the agenda in black line, so that's probably the best place to look at it, but the sentence would now read, no president may serve for more than 2 years consecutively in that office. So effectively, it removes term limits for all the officers except for president. And as Mary mentioned earlier, every year there is an election, and every year officers need to be re-elected. So that in and of itself kind of keeps things on the level, but it removes the limitation. You know, I've been secretary for 2 years. I'm happy to keep being secretary unless somebody wants to challenge me. Come on. So, you know.
Find some sucker.
Yeah. Making these ballots is super fun, just FYI. Anyways, so that is what we're proposing. Anyone care to discuss?
Well, I don't know how you want to do the entire process if we're going to vote on these separately. Let me just say, I think it's great that the bylaws are being updated, but I think that the term limit direction that you guys have gone has really almost opposite of what good policy would direct an organization like this to do. As a former president, I can tell you that one of my sacred responsibilities, I thought, to the organization was to recruit new members into the executive committee who ended up being new members, new strong contributors to this organization. Jen, you're one of them. Cheryl, you're one of them. Ann, you're one of them. Dave, I mean, you know, the fact is, if you remove term limits to the officers besides president, you eliminate the incentive on the chief executive to carry out that sacred responsibility and recruit new members into the organization. What you'll end up with is a small, self-perpetuating group talking to themselves, not growing, no recruitment of officers, and it leads to a certain stagnation. You'll end up with lower membership. That's why no one else does stuff like that. If you take a look at what Beacon Hill Civic does, if you take a look at what Neighborhood Association of Back Bay does, there is a progression plan for all officers. In fact, they have a president that leads into a chairman, so they've effectively, as we discussed last time, made a 4-year period for the chief executive, because the chief executive needs to have relationships in City Hall, and it takes a while to build a relationship with the mayor, city council president, and other members of the city council. So the only place where you see a little bit of give is they allow sort of a ramp to allow presidents to become chairman and stick around for a while, because they want to take advantage of that, which we're not doing. However, they encourage, and I think all healthy organizations should encourage recruitment from the outside. My fear is, if you take those away, we will have the same executive committee for a long, long time. We'll end up just talking to ourselves, and I think that leads to an unhealthy organization. So I hope that this particular aspect could be rethought. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments on that? Sure, question, Mary. Why are you singling out the president to, not you, but the bylaw committee? Why is the bylaw committee singling out the president to have only a 2-year term?
Well, I think that, and I did participate in the bylaw committee. I think that the thinking was that going along somewhat with what Ford said, that we did not want any one person to get entrenched in that office or the organization to be associated with any one person. And frankly, most of the people who served as president have not wanted to serve more than 2 years. And it does seem that it would require other people to step up and take that on. As far as the other positions, we felt that that was less of an issue. You know, I don't think Jen is going to get entrenched as secretary. We're very happy to have her do it right now. But if someone, we have been recruiting members, trying to get them involved really more in the committees right now, because that is where we really need some help. For example, CLC, parks, working on the website, things like that. But certainly, if there was someone who, I think there would be a point where Jen will frankly be too busy, and she will need to have someone else take her place, and hopefully there will be another active member who will be willing to do it. Similarly, we have had Anne serve as treasurer for 2 years, has done a great job, really has gotten everything streamlined and in order and organized, but she just has other commitments and can't continue to do it. So we need to recruit someone for that position. Sergeant at Arms is kind of our entry-level position, you might say. Cheryl has come on as a new person, but she has really taken over the digital aspect for us, which doesn't necessarily go along with that position, but we're very happy to have her do that. So I think that is the thinking of the bylaws committee, why we decided to just go that way. It may be that we do want to go back to limits for the other offices if we see people getting entrenched. But frankly, it's a lot of work. I don't really see that as a problem. And ironically enough, having been in some of these other positions, they're really kind of more work than the resident, which is not as much paperwork and sending out things and stuff like that. So I don't really see it as a concern that people are not going to move through these positions. But certainly I'd be interested to hear if anybody else felt that way.
Yes, I agree with much of what Ford has to say, and for the reasons that he's saying it, but I see it from another point of view. Frequently in the past, I have been asked by members of the business community, what would your board think about this or about that? And I have to say, our board's thoughts are not important. This is a membership organization, a democratic organization. Membership vote. I feel uneasy about the danger of entrenchment, which Ford points out, and have felt that myself in the past. I would like to have somebody else do what I'm doing. I've been entrenched for too long, which is why the business community asks me, what would your board think about this? Because my face is important. So I would offer a compromise. Suppose other officers' term limits were 3 years or 4 years, but just something to avoid a ruling clique. Not that it would operate that way, but the appearance to the outside.
Sure. Just 2 quick thoughts, because we have given this a lot of thought. Going back to Ford last year when we were doing this work. 2 things. One is the bylaws committee is going to keep working on the bylaws. So this is by no means like a done issue. If people are interested in being on the bylaws committee, we plan to continue making changes and working on them. And we'll bring, you know, a slate of changes at some point. We're not gonna do a piecemeal, but this isn't like done deal. It's, can never be discussed again. Second is, as far as people getting entrenched, I mean, I think it's a balance because every time we've gone out to try to find people, it's really difficult. So if everybody wants to step up.
But it's doable.
It's
I mean,
doable.
look how many people there are here.
You did a really good job for it. Cause
Well, but that's what a president does. I mean, and all of us should be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you got people to join. And
We
that's
need to keep
great.
doing it. We need to have 4 new people up there. And my concern is I think what Mary and Victor talked about. Mary mentioned we need recruitment in some of the committees. Victor talked about how everyone comes to him. Because that's the one area we don't have term limits right now, you know, on the committee chairs. And what we've created, particularly with ZLC, is a very risky situation where it's on Victor's back because there's never been any pressure on the organization to find a new Victor, because there is no term limit. That is the best, loudest example of why you need term limits, and I would contend you want to extend term limits to the committee chairs so that you keep that discipline going. So that you don't have every position end up like Victor at ZLC feeling the weight of the world.
But that's not before us tonight. I mean, I think that we were certainly welcome, as Jen has pointed out, that we're going to have an ongoing bylaws committee. And if people feel that we need to start electing the chairs, you know, this is something that's been discussed, or that we need to have term limits on the chairs, that's not in any way foreclosed. But as a practical matter, we need to make a decision tonight on at least whether we want to have the term limits for the officers such as Jen as secretary, because as a practical matter, Jen has served 2 years. She has really kind of also got systematized now. It would be very nice if she can keep doing it, because we, as a practical matter, don't have someone who has stepped up to say they would like to do that. We have other people who are getting involved in other ways, but no one who is indicating that they're willing to take that on. So I think to just be practical, we need to deal with it, because otherwise we are going to lose several of our officers, and we don't have someone in place. And maybe we want to say over the course of this year, and again, anyone who wants to participate in the bylaws committee is more than welcome. And we need, as a matter of fact, a new chair, because we have lost our chair, and I don't think that Jen wants to continue to do that. So we will need to do that. We should have an active committee, and if people feel at the end of this that yes, let's make it 3 years, and we know that that's coming, and we have somebody who's willing to take over for Jen, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to have that happen. We don't have that right now.
I don't intend to make this a monopoly.
Yeah, which I don't think it's her lifetime ambition to be the secretary of NEWRA. It's not a lifetime appointment, but this is more or less a response to where we came from last year, where we were thinking about doing away with any term limits at all.
No,
And
four-year term
I think
limits.
the thought is now that we will keep, excuse me? Okay, that we will do away with them for certain offices, see how it goes, and revisit it. So that's the thing. But certainly, if anybody else has any suggestions, this is the time.
Just in addition to the conversation, which is perhaps on the other side of it, that it's not the side that Ford and I are taking, members should be reminded that nominations from the floor will be accepted at the annual meeting. So if someone decides between now and then they would like to be treasurer, we hope someone will decide, because it's not continuing.
Well,
But anyway, that is a system that
they don't have to just come from the floor, because in reality, we have a month before the election, and if other names come in, which I'm hoping that we will have a nominating committee who will come up with names and put them forward, and it may be that you know, it would let some other people off the hook, so to speak, if other people are interested in serving. This is by no means a group that is entrenched. I mean, our current officers are mostly new people or new people to their positions. So I think we're very open to that. I hope there's no sense anywhere in the organization that we aren't open to that. And, but again, I think that we are in a situation right now where we have an election next month. If we are changing the bylaws, we need to do it tonight. And we just frankly do not have another Jen lined up right now that we know of who's willing to take that over. So if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I suggest it takes longer than 2 years to not only get acclimated to the job, but to actually become efficient at it. And that it's not going to create an entrenchment if you extend for 3 years, or certainly longer than 2 years, without worrying about entrenchment.
Does anybody want to propose a change then to that proposal?
Well, how about making it 3 years? And by the way, just to correct the record, last year's vote was not no term limits, it was 4-year term limits, what was on the table. So what I'm hearing Michael say is 3-year term limits. That's great. Why don't we do that?
What do people say, 3, 4? I don't care.
Well, I think the proposal is for all offices aside from the presidency. The president is still subject to 2-year term.
Yeah. 4? 3? Somebody, can we have a motion?
I'll make
okay, what's your motion?
yeah, I have another one, and that we, serve more than 3 years consecutively in that office.
Well, we would just reinstate, we'd have to do a separate sentence to talk about each one.
Yeah, exactly.
So 3 years for the officers other than president.
Exactly.
Okay, so,
I don't know, how about 3 for all of them?
well, I don't know if that's addressing our problem. I think people, the committee did feel throughout that president was different.
I'm okay
2
with
years
3
was
years.
sufficient.
You want to get out of it after 2 years?
Or an exit door.
No, I mean, there is truth to that. I think that 2 years is a good amount of time to serve as president. And I think in other organizations that presidents serve for 2 years.
But then they become chairman, Mary. I mean, the relationships, a president builds outside relationships. That's the reason we were talking about that so
Yeah,
much.
but that's,
You know.
the point is that I think people were feeling the president should be treated differently and that 2 years is sufficient to be president. And so if people are feeling that we still need term limits for the other offices, which I don't really agree with because I don't see the other offices as things that people are going to get attention. Because frankly, you're not the focus of attention that you are with the president. And you know, the president is the person who gets called to comment or ridiculous articles in Globe and whatever else. And the fact of the matter is that I don't think we want one person to always be commenting near after is better. How will we get on that? But the other roles are just the work roles. And you know, I'm far less concerned about people getting entrenched in those. And I think that Michael makes an excellent point that for those things like being the treasurer, like being the secretary, that it does take you a good amount of time just to do the bank work, to transfer the treasurer's role. It takes several months. So by the time you're up and running, it really is inefficient to have to change that again. So I really don't think we need limits in those other areas. I think what Jen has proposed and what the committee has proposed is a good proposal. But I think if people feel strongly that we need the limits, then, yeah, Mary Ann, you could just, again, say what your proposal is to change it, that we would have 2 years for the president and 3 years for everyone else?
Yes, but my first motion is going to be that we accept the bylaw amendment as they're proposed to see again.
Okay. So you want to make,
on what everybody feels about the proposed amendments.
okay, so do you want to make that first motion? And then we can go
I'd rather the second one.
You'd rather the second one?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to,
Accept the bylaws to, bylaw amendment as proposed in this, this thing.
okay. So, did anybody second that?
I'll second.
Okay. So, shall we do a paper ballot on that? And then we have,
What are we voting?
Would you restate that?
Will there be a second vote then on,
if we, her proposal is, she has moved that we vote to accept the proposal as written on the term limits. So if we do not vote for that, then we will have to have another vote. But if we do vote for that, then that will be decided.
well, let me suggest that you separate out this one issue that seems to be controversial. Vote on the other proposed amendments. Maybe get to
Okay.
and then deal with the one that's controversial.
Okay, can we do that by a show of hands?
We already discussed
So
the last.
the last item, which may or may not be controversial, is that we intend to raise the dues from $10 to $20. Life in general has gotten more expensive over time, and the dues have never gone up. So, anyone want to talk about that?
Just one quick question. If you raise the dues, what's that rule about how many meetings you have to attend to be able to vote? Because you're paying for the dues to be able to vote. And how many meetings do you have to have out of the 12 to still be?
Two
So-
in a year, so you have to have attended one, to be able to vote as for the offices. You have to keep your voting in place, you have to
Yeah.
have been to one meeting in the past 6 months, so effectively you have to come to 2 meetings a year to be able to vote.
Okay, so that didn't change.
That has not changed.
Okay, thank you.
So I suggest a voice vote or a hand vote on items 1, 2, 4, and 5, and then maybe
Okay. Great suggestion. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a show of hands as to whether we accept the other changes. All in favor? Okay. That passes. All right. Okay, that was easy. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the next. Mary Ann has made a motion that we accept proposal number 3 as written. So can we, we'll do that on ballot number 1. If you agree with her motion, you support. If you don't agree with that, you oppose. That is for as written. Number 3 will pass as written right now.
can we have discussion on that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry.
So I would propose an amendment to proposal, and that is what you actually want to happen. And what you actually want to happen is 2-year term for president, 2-year term limit for president, 3-year term limit for other officers. Is that correct?
Is that what you want to have happen?
Not really.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, not really. I just was feeling the atmosphere and thought that the 3-year might be something to vote on, but I really would vote for the one as written.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So let's vote on that and we'll see how it is. That has failed to pass. We had 17 support and 12 oppose. However, we need a 2/3 majority for bylaw change, so that will not pass. So we will need to go back to the drawing board, and I don't know if anyone has another proposal to make as far as a bylaw change.
Can we vote on each individual issue in terms of the president?
Propose anything.
Yeah, I mean, we can have any proposal that we want to have, or we can decide to not make a change. But, that does put us on the line if we don't have any change at all.
Somebody better be ready to be secretary.
Like I say, and I'm so sorry, the traffic's awful, I've got out of work late, but my feeling has always been that NEWRA is a members organization. And it's, it's difficult to be up on the exec committee. But the problem if someone is on the committee for too long, as members, we participate all the time, and the more people that participate, the better. To have a president more than 2 years, it is not reflected as a members organization anymore. As hard as the work is that you all do there, you were there just to keep it running and not to be the figurehead. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would propose that we should vote on the term limits for the president individually, if we can, and then we can look at the other members later. Can we do that individually, or? Well, I thought she said it didn't pass. As written, which was,
Right, so
I
right
mean, I
now,
don't understand it. Did it not pass because it was,
I think it probably didn't pass because people feel like they want term limits on the officers, but maybe not 2 years.
Did everybody understand they were just voting for a term limit on the president?
No.
Okay, that's what you were voting on.
We're talking about last year or this year?
This year, you're voting on term limits for the president of 2 years.
But it was also, Cheryl, it's also taking away the term limits on the other officers. So,
so if we separate it out, at least we know where people
well,
stand.
the president already has a 2-year term limit as it is. So we don't need to even talk about that. If everyone's okay with the 2-year term limit on the president, we're done. What we're talking about now is the other officers. Do people want to talk about a longer than 2-year term limit, but still a term limit? Is that something that people want to talk about? I mean, I'm not trying to be secretary forever, so this is not about me. This is about people getting good at what they do and enjoying what they do and wanting to keep doing it for longer than 2 years. I don't want to be secretary for 10 years. I might want to do it for 1 more year. Maybe I'll try something else. Maybe if nobody runs for treasurer, I'll go for treasurer. I don't know. Somebody wants to be secretary.
Dave?
Mary, I have a proposal, and with all due respect to Susan and concerns about membership losing control over its own group, I'm a big proponent of relaxing term limits for all the reasons that were discussed previously about people just hitting their stride after 2 years. I think I tried to make this case unsuccessfully at last year's elections. So in my perfect world, there would be no term limits for anybody, and you just vote people in and out as you see fit. But with respect to the membership, I think my proposal as a compromise would be is what we proposed last year, which would have been 4-year term limits, with the exclusion of the presidency, since that seems to be something that people are comfortable with. So revising the current proposal, which removes term limits for all officers except president, I would suggest amending that to 4-year term limits for all the other officers besides president.
So 2 for president, 4 for
Four for
everyone
everyone
else.
else.
I second it.
I know that.
Okay, so can we'll write this up. No president may serve for more than 2 years consecutively in that office. No other officer may serve for more than 4 years consecutively in that office, in their office.
In a given office, in one office.
I would prefer to be first amendment cats, but obviously there are reservations.
Don't you think the president should be full too?
No, they shouldn't.
I do.
That will get you.
think a lot of people. And the other option is to take it back to the bylaws committee and really have some more debate.
We don't have the luxury of doing that, Ford, because we have to have an election next month and we need a secretary. So we don't have the luxury of doing that. We can certainly, the bylaws committee will continue to operate. There is, people can propose anything. It would be very nice if we had an active committee with a few more members. We haven't had that many people who've been on it, but it would be nice to have a few more members. So certainly, you want to come to that, you're more than welcome. But right now, we have to focus on addressing the matter at hand. So this is what I guess our new proposal is going to be. No president may serve for more than 2 years consecutively in that office. No other officer may serve for more than 4 years consecutively in the office to which they were elected. Does that pass muster?
Yes.
Okay. So, we can,
Is everybody still balanced? Because there were a couple that were stapled together.
We still have,
May I just say, I have a problem. This is a tactical move to make sure that we have a secretary. And that's exactly what we said was wrong with last year's process. It's at the 11th hour.
Okay, can we vote on the proposal?
That's true, we did do the exact same thing last year.
We were
Voted at the 11th hour just so we could have a president.
But we were voting in October.
That's true.
We didn't
That's
change,
true.
we didn't change our bylaws. We were trying to change our bylaws at the same meeting where we were having the election. We are in keeping with our bylaws now because we are voting the month before, which is the proper thing to do. So in any event, we have a proposal on the floor. We're going to vote on. Does everybody understand what the proposal is? If you support that proposal, you are supporting. If you oppose that, you are opposing. Okay.
If you oppose, there'll be
No change to the bylaws.
It'll be 2 years for everyone.
Resolution, our new proposal has passed 26-4, so we do have. Jen will, after all this, agree to run again.
Just to spite y'all, I'm not gonna.
But again, we really need a treasurer, if there was anyone who's willing to serve in that capacity. And if anyone wants to run for any other office, again, I don't think that there is anyone who would not be willing to move on, including myself. So, by all means, put your name forward. I will chair the nominating committee just by default at this point, so I can get somebody else to take it over. So just let me know, and we'll welcome all nominees. Okay, thank you very much.